Anatoly Markin was a short man, no more than 5'5". Margaret put him at about 50. His skin was pasty white, flesh hanging loosely on a round face, dirty fair hair oiled and scraped back over a flaking scalp. Around his eyes and nose and mouth, his skin was crusting and red, and it had shed itself down the front of his crumpled suit. Margaret noticed, too, what looked like psoriasis around the knuckles on his fingers. His eyes, beneath strangely blonde eyebrows, were an odd pale blue, and had a disconcerting quality when turned in your direction. He looked like a reptile that had been out of water for too long. Markin sat at the head of the table and blinked at all the faces assembled around it. Colonel Zeiss made the introductions and sat back, effectively handing the meeting over to Markin, who sat in silence for a long time just looking at them, breathing in short, shallow bursts that crackled in his chest. At length, in a cartoon Russian accent, he said, "My hair, ladies and gentlemen, used to be jet black." He ran a scaly finger along one of his thick, blonde eyebrows. "My eyebrows, too." He had their full attention now, and his breath wheezed and gurgled in the silence of the conference room. "I have not gone prematurely grey. My hair never regained its colour after it was bleached blonde by the hydrogen peroxide disinfectant we sprayed into the air in Zone 1 of Building 107 at Omutninsk. That is where we first developed tularemia for the purposes of biological warfare. We put it into little bomblets and managed to kill a lot of monkeys with it on Rebirth Island. That was in the early 80s. 10 years after we signed the 1972 Biological Weapons Convention." He smiled. "We lied a lot." He placed his hands on the table in front of him, as if to draw their attention to the dry, cracked skin and red, flaking knuckles. "Over the years," he said, "I have been vaccinated against almost everything you can imagine, from anthrax to plague, many, many times over." He paused for effect. "You see the result before you. A man whose immune system has been shot to hell." A bitter laugh turned into a cough, and phlegm rattled in his throat. "I have more allergies than you people can count. I have lost my sense of smell, my sense of taste. My skin falls off me in drifts. If I did not spend an hour rubbing moisturizers and oils into my hands and face and scalp each morning, I would be red raw." His eyes grew suddenly very intense, and he leaned forward on his elbows. "And you people thought that smallpox was dead, that there were only 2 remaining repositories in the world, one here in America and the other at the Ivanovsky Institute of Virology in Moscow." A momentary silence. Then, "Ha!" he shouted, and slapped his palms on the table and sat back. "We developed a weapons-grade variety of it at a secret laboratory at Zagorsk, and were producing 100 tons a year of the stuff at Koltsova." He shrugged as if in apology. "Okay, so mortality rate is low, only 50%, but morbidity is excellent. Up to 90% of unvaccinated people exposed to the virus will contract it." He seemed to be enjoying himself now. "Then there is anthrax. Wonderful mortality rate. Up to 90% if untreated in the first 2 days. Horrible way to die. The bacteria takes over your lymphatic system before entering the blood and producing toxins that attack your organs. Your skin turns blue and your lungs fill with fluid and you drown. We knew just how effective it was when we had our own little biological Chernobyl at Sverdlovsk. Spores were released accidentally from our plant there and killed most of the night shift at a ceramics factory across the road. Given the right atmospheric conditions, the release of 100 kilos of spores in any big U.S. city would kill around 3 million people. We were developing a strain of anthrax that could be deployed in an SS-18 missile. a single one of which would have wiped out the population of New York City. At Stepnogorsk, we were producing 2 tons of anthrax a day." Some of those around the table had undoubtedly heard this before, but it was news to Margaret. She sat in stunned and horrified silence as Markin continued to catalogue the monstrous affront to civilized behaviour that had been perpetrated by the former Soviet Union with its hugely funded biowarfare program. He appeared to draw succour from their disapproval. "Of course, smallpox and anthrax were not the only concoctions we were preparing for the arming of the SS-18s. There was plague, the bubonic variety of which killed 1/4 of the population of Europe in the Middle Ages. And then there was Marburg, a rare filovirus that acts in much the same way as Ebola. And all that," he added, "when you Americans were hailing Mikhail Gorbachev as the great reformer, the man who would draw the world back from the brink of superpower confrontation. Well, I'll let you into a little secret. In terms of biowarfare, there was only one superpower, and that was the Soviet Union." He grinned, the whole superiority of his tone condensed in the next words. "And you know what? You people didn't even know it." He stood up, as if his seat had suddenly become very hot. "I'm telling you this because you need to know that we knew what we were doing. We spent billions on research, built massive plants capable of bacterial and viral weapons production on the grand scale. We had thousands of scientists and researchers working full-time on ways to destroy the population of the West with infective agents." He took his time looking around the table, meeting the eyes that were all turned toward him. "And then, suddenly, it was over. The Soviet Union was no more. The money stopped, the program was pulled, weapon stocks destroyed." He shrugged extravagantly. "They have a limited life anyway, a use-by date just like you'd find in the supermarket." He drew a deep, crackling breath. "But the know-how didn't go away. What do you think happened to all these thousands of scientists when the government stopped paying them?" He stabbed a finger into his own chest. "Like me, they went to work for the highest bidder." His eyes were alight now. "But unlike me, they didn't all go to work for the good guys." And he sat down again just as suddenly. "My friends, we have scattered the seeds of our own destruction to the 4 corners of the earth. Many of my former colleagues, I believe, now work for the new republics. Others are in the employ of the Russian mafia. Yet more went abroad. To Iraq, Saddam paid well, and to other Arab countries, to India and Pakistan. Some are working for multinationals, others for entrepreneurs. I have heard that Arab terrorists would pay handsomely for some of that know-how. And who knows who else is out there itching to spend money on killing Americans with the super bugs we created."
Scary, scary stuff. And as scary today as the day I wrote it. Nothing changes. It only gets worse. Anyway, that's Snakehead. I hope you'll take a look at The Fourth Sacrifice if you haven't already done so. As I said, it's now available in paperback. Snakehead just out in hardback. And I will now throw this open to questions, and I will be happy to answer any questions you like to tippy-tap on text to me, and we can spend as long or as little time as you like. I look forward to hearing from you.